We didn't have museums to go to. I lived in a small town named Sinton, Texas, which is in South Texas. We didn't have museums to go to, so most of the time it was just things that you did at home. My name is Viola Delgado. I do paintings. I also do art in public spaces. It really started with my mother. We lived in a two-room house. My mother made me my coloring books. But she would take the paper from the groceries and she'd cut it up. And then back then they used to have coffee that came in a can, and they would have a little key and they would turn and it had metal on it. So she would bound it with that. And then the flour sacks had beautiful fabric that people used to make dresses for kids or blouses or whatever, and she would make ribbons and put them through there. So those were my first coloring books. So I would say my mother's the one who introduced art to me. And I worked for the school district as a community worker for migrant families. And I did that for a while, but it was just a little bit too much for me, depression and all that. And so I ended up stopping one day. I just decided I was going to quit, and I didn't have anything else. And so I was at home thinking about what I wanted to do, and I was drawing and, doing things like that. So I thought, well, why don't I go to a community college and take some art classes? Well, we're here at the Latino Cultural Center, and I have a sculpture in the front facing Live Oak, the road, and it is a metal sculpture, and it is called The Garden. I don't do art for the money, even though I need it, and I'm sure somebody will say she's crazy, I do it because it helps me. If my art can be seen in public spaces and some kid walks up to it and says, something about it, that really touches me. So I'd like the viewer to walk away with it, the whole idea that they may not have a place to go to a museum. I mean, if they live in the city of Dallas, we have so many places they can go, and a lot of them cater to children, so that's a real plus for Dallas. But if you live in a small town and you don't get to go to those things, I want them to walk away with that, with saying, oh, she can do that, I can do that. Or go home. I've known of kids to go home and try to draw the same thing and color the same way. So that to me is a thing. For me, it's a transformation of a thought. But even though for me that's what it is, I want them to that's might be what it is for them. When they see it, it's a thought that will be transforming into what they're doing. I bring a lot of color. Definitely a lot of color. You look at them, some of them look a little bit more modern than others, but it's all a narrative. And that's what I want it to be. I want it to be a narrative. This one over here, that's called The Floating Women. And that one actually glows at night. The women are kneeling and you see those shadows under them. That to me was important to show that. They're called also the ancestral women, because they bring knowledge, they bring wisdom, they bring love, they bring family. All those things come together. I try not to follow all the rules. What does it matter? That's what you're feeling. It's a freedom you have. Just like an actor on stage is a freedom. My canvas is my character, that I'm pouring everything into. It's my, the viewer is my audience.
That idea of textiles as craft kind of really drew me to it in the first place. It felt like there was a lot more potential in that medium because people overlooked it. And as I also had a familiarity with it as well, with family members of mine who were really big quilters and sewers, so I've kind of been around the materials my whole life. And I like the fact that, you know, everyone interacts with textiles on a daily basis.
I'm Krista, they, them, and I'm an artist, and I make work that talks about the queer boundary and the natural world and relates them together. A lot of my fabric process is layering different translucent fabrics like they would be in a silkscreen print. So here I have cyan, magenta, and yellow. You can see when you layer yellow on top of magenta, you get a little bit of orange. And so you kind of do the same thing with the blue. And this gets some purple and some green. Usually it's a little more vibrant when the lighter color is on top.
Right now it's kind of having a resurgence. People are willing to look at it in a different light. There are a lot of really exciting artists getting attention and making really wonderful work in textile, and I think it is getting the most attention that it has gotten in the fine art world in a very long time, if ever. A lot of my work, I'm thinking about sacredness of living things and other things in this natural world, and how we're all kind of interconnected, and how that is fleeting but also eternal. So I really am pushing towards this kind of mystical, surreal, ethereal kind of environment. As a general life philosophy, I don't like to put hard rules on anything. That's kind of what I'm interested in my work, exploring in my work, is nuance and how kind of different things can be true at the same time. But I mean, I want my work to be beautiful, but also have a message. Even if what I'm trying to say with it or what comes out is not necessarily what the viewer takes away. I think as an artist, you can only control what you make and how you present it, and how people interpret it is not up to you, and sometimes that's the scary part. I'm really interested in softness as both like a tactile experience, but also a concept like this nuance and care and just tenderness towards other people and everything that we share this world with. For me, I am looking to make comforting things, but also things that provoke thought. But I also think that the art that provokes action is also really important.
I'm Andrea Toston, and I am a visual artist who incorporates calligraphy and bookbinding elements into my art practice. I initially was thinking I was going to be a veterinarian. And so what happened was I actually had my first child before going to college. So I started thinking, I was like, well, I'm going to have my child under a lab desk. I feel like for me, it's probably not a very conscious. I'm an analytical person, and I do have a problem with perfectionism, art and sign it. I feel like one can't really exist without the other. Like, art is needed to conceptualize science. There's all sorts of ways that science and art are interconnected and depend on each other to expand the growth of humans and enrich the human condition. My mom is from Jamaica. We didn't grow up speaking Jamaican nation language in the house at all. And so I approached it from the outside looking in. And so I decided to use Danilian, which was the handwriting style or the cursive style that I learned as a child in elementary school. And I decided to create a pangram, a sentence that has all of the letters of the alphabet. And I did a piece with that. And then I did a piece called Learn Patois. It really started to just continue to deepen my calligraphic voice with using the text-based work and reading information about concerning my family backgrounds, Jamaica, as I mentioned earlier, and then Louisiana for my dad's side. And approaching those histories, those ethnicities of my Black culture. The words that stand out to me, I just mentally make a note of those words. Do avoid making outright statements. I try to pick words that are enticing to the audience to bring them in and spark some interest to start their own journey of exploration, just to kind of leave it open and allow for that opportunity to do that. I want it to be a conversation. I really approach it as a self-education. And I think about it in that way. It makes me think of a talk I listened to not too long ago. Jamal Cyrus was talking about the tradition in the Black community of self-education. And I really identified with that because I feel like that's how I approach my work. Have a lot of reading and of course experience, and try to just incorporate that into my visual art practice in a meaningful way. I don't necessarily want to make outright statements, but I am hoping that my work is, as I mentioned earlier, Pan-African, and that it shows the gratitude that I have towards the people that came before me and the art collective that I'm currently a part of. FLIBBERTIGIBBET, Liberty Gibbet. And it means a frivolous person or someone who talks a lot just to hear themselves talk, not really saying anything of substance. That's a Liberty Gibbet.
I love new technology. I'm always thinking about the next thing. I'm a sucker. I will probably be first in line when they do brain implants. You know, like, I like new stuff. I believe in progress and trying to make the world better through technology, although, you know, there's certainly some giant question marks there.
Hi, I'm Zeke Williams. I make these constructed wood paintings. This is my studio. Welcome.
This exhibit is the third exhibit of this carved woodwork. It's so with this work, I started out just kind of doing these kind of grand landscapes of national parks. I spent a lot of time with my grandparents going to national parks. They worked there for the last 20 years of their life. One of our family members would drive them out there and a different one would drive them back, and I was the one who usually drove them out there for a few years. It was very interesting to be a person in your 30s getting to spend time with your grandparents like a week and a half. Like, that's just not normal in America for us, at least not for my family. And so it was a really wonderful time, and it sort of inspired me. I ended up with a big box of photographs of national parks that they had taken, so I was making the work primarily from there originally. I was probably like 12 years old, and I went on a field trip to the Fort Worth Modern. And the Fort Worth Modern they still own these 3 shaped Ellsworth Kelly canvases there, and there's just 3 solid color shaped canvases. And you know, a lot of people see that work and they're like, oh, my kid could do that. That's like not much of an idea or something. But like I saw that work as a 12-year-old and I was like, I could do that, and I want to do that. There's a lot of talk about like trying to find truth, and I guess I am, but like I don't think of it that way. I think of it more as like a series of small problems to solve, of like things to make. I mean, I want to make other people happy. That's like my biggest concern as a person. I'm very, very people-pleasy, so my work often is also that way, and that's okay with me. Like that's who I am, and it's an expression of me. I just have trouble believing things that I cannot put my hands on, but I somehow with art I can believe anything. You know, when it comes to like watching a play or seeing a story or going to the opera, I can believe what's happening in front of me is happening, at least in the way that like aesthetics allow me to believe it, and like really just like let myself go over to something else instead of have to worry about reality. And that again, coming back to my work, I'm sort of trying to do the same thing but visually. You know, whether I'm achieving it or not is up to you. You know, but that's the goal. Okay, so this painting is of a Contrabando Canyon. It's on the Rio Grande River Road. This painting I really wanted to show off the kind of sort of flowing nature of having the painting multiplied and then sort of laid out in this brick pattern. One of the like interesting things about making something this large is that plywood is rarely a perfectly flat material, and when you put it in a CNC machine, it's perfectly flat. And so, but like this one, the channels here just stopped carving because the plywood was too low. And here they carved all the way on this version of that landscape. But like in this spot, they didn't. And I left that in because I think that sort of like creates a dynamic space, and it shows off the like kind of chaos that is inherent in everything that we do. It's certainly definitely inherent in the material, but it's more inherent in like who we are as people and art makers. We're dealing with fighting chaos and embracing it where we can.
My name is Christina Kirkener-Hart, and I am the Director of Cultural Tourism for Visit Dallas. I am going to take you on a brief tour of the Dallas Arts District, but through the lens of some of our really rich buildings with history, with civil rights, freedmen's towns, and basically how Dallas chooses to use art in reparation for ills of the past. So we're standing in front of St. Paul United Methodist Church. It is one of the oldest churches in Dallas, and one of the most interesting and beautiful things about this space is that it was founded by freedmen, freed slaves from Mississippi, Louisiana, and Texas. They created a congregation where they would meet on the land in 1873. 30 years later, they decided to build a physical church, brick by brick, starting in 1903 and ended in 1925. Took them 20 years to build this incredible space. So here we are in front of the Moreland YMCA. It was built in the 1930s. It was one of the only spaces in Dallas where African Americans could stay when they came to the city. And when I say that, I mean everyone from Aretha Franklin to Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, all the civil rights leaders and any performers who came, this was the only space that they could stay in. Eventually, the Y moved to another location and the building was empty for quite a while. And Dallas Black Dance Theater saw it as a beautiful opportunity. They renovated this space. The gymnasium is now a big, huge open dance space. We're here in front of Booker T. Washington High School for the Performing and Visual Arts. Last year, it celebrated its 100-year anniversary, and its 45th anniversary of being an arts magnet. In the 1970s, due to a court order, the city of Dallas demanded that all segregated schools be desegregated. One of the most beautiful stories of that is that in desegregating this school, they decided to turn it into an arts magnet. So one of the most sophisticated high schools of its time, this building right here is the 100-year-old building. It had air conditioning, high-tech science labs, all of the modern facilities that any high school would need at the time, but it was the only school for African Americans to study. So they were bussed in from all over Dallas. Now, it is the High School for Performing and Visual Arts, and this building here is only for the academics. And then all around the outside, they built a beautiful facility with the most modern equipment for music, theater, dance, and visual arts.